So I will briefly explain it to you as I understand it, and then we're going to leave it at that because the science said no.
Hi, welcome to Lilies and Tomatoes, your go-to place for simple and practical tips and tricks on how to start a garden all the way through how to use what you grow. This is from my live class that I teach on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays on Facebook. If you'd like to attend a live class or ask me a question, check out the link in the description.
Hello. Welcome back to my basement workshop. Today we are going to be splitting up a comfrey root and we're up-potting it or repotting it into a different container that we made on Tuesday. If we have not met yet, my name is Quincey Adams and I want to help you grow some of your own food in a small space on a budget. Let's get started. Okay, so first let's talk about comfrey. This little bad boy right here, I'm supposed to drop this in here and not stuck. This is comfrey. I put a tiny piece of root in here last year and it has expanded a lot. So I just want to show you this. I actually cut this plant down to the dirt last week and it already has several plants and it looks like I've got two clustered together pretty close. It is a fuzzy leaf. It's got lots of hair on it. It's a little bit itchy. So if you've got sensitive skin, you should definitely wear gloves while you're working with this. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about comfrey and why you should grow it. And then we will pull this out and split up the root. So comfrey is a plant that is native to Europe, Asia, and North America. It has been used traditionally for medicinal purposes all across the world. The leaves and roots have been used in all kinds of treatments. It is also called knit bone. It is used to treat muscle sprains, bruises, burns, joint inflammation, gout, and stomach ailments. You can also dry it up and put it into salves and creams. So it's been used to treat all kinds of topical ailments. But, and I'll tell you, it has a property or a chemical in it called allantoin and a chemical called rosmarinic acid. Allantoin boosts cell growth and rosmarinic acid relieves pain and inflammation. But it also has chemical compounds in it that hurt your liver, and consumption in large doses can cause cancer. So it is not recommended. I am telling you, don't consume this internally or use it on open wounds. And because of the potential cancer causing compounds, it has actually been banned by the FDA in herbal treatments. So if you want to use this, you need to find some and grow your own and make your own, because the FDA put the kibosh on this around 2008. In permaculture circles, it is called a dynamic accumulator. And when I looked that up to explain that process to you guys, I found out that the science was a little shaky. So I will briefly explain it to you as I understand it, and then we're going to leave it at that because the science said no. But basically, dynamic accumulators are plants that are thought to have, they have a really deep root run. So their roots bring up the nutrients from deep in the ground and they're stored in the leaves. But the science on that is bared out to not be completely true. But it is used to build soil and it's used in fertilizer. It has an NPK of 1.8, 0.5, and 5.3. So it is one of the plants that are commonly grown by permaculture enthusiasts to add to your compost or to mix into a fermented tea fertilizer. But it may or may not be a dynamic accumulator, but it does have an NPK value and it grows really fast and it has a lot of biomass for your fertilizer. So I grow it to add to my compost. Oh, is that a question? Did you start it from seed or did you buy it sprouted? Oh, okay. Comfrey is actually hard to grow from seed and hard to find. I actually got a root clump at a seed swap with some people that I met in Virginia. They're actually permaculture gardeners. Dave and Nikki, they're cool people. So I was talking about looking for comfrey. I had bought some seeds online that did not germinate because it is notoriously hard to germinate from seed. And they gave me a root ball from their garden. And what I did last year was I took that root ball and I broke it up into smaller pieces and I potted it into a bunch of pots and I waited for it to grow as tall as it was going to get. Comfrey in the wild can get up to 5 feet tall, but if you plant it in a container, it's only gonna get high appropriate to like the amount of soil it has. So like I let it grow up. You're supposed to wait till it sets its flowers, cut it down. In my zone, I can get it to grow 3 full times. So it grows up, sets flowers, I cut it down to the ground, it grows again. So as you can see, like that's how you get a lot of biomass for your fertilizer or for your compost pile, which is what I was growing it for. And then I tried to take all of the root balls, I broke them up after they grew up a couple times in the pots, and I tried to plant them out on the side of my house, and the soil there is extremely heavy clay. And even after I treated it with gypsum to try to loosen the soil, I planted the root sections out and only 2 of them survived. So those 2 are still hanging on out there. And I got myself a brand new garden tool that I will be using to try to clear that area again and plant some more. But the soil here is not good, not in the direct ground, but in any kind of like decent soil, comfrey's gonna grow like a weed. If you get a non-stale version, it will spread. Comfrey is definitely not a plant that you wanna try to rototill. If you've got it somewhere, like if you're gonna plant it where you want it forever, because the roots are gonna run deep and spread out. And it only takes but like a small root fragment to grow a whole new plant. So if you're trying to get rid of it and you try to till it, you're just gonna break up the root and have a billion more plants. So don't till it if you want to get rid of it. Just dig out as much as you can, cover the whole area with cardboard, then cover with black plastic, put some stones on it and leave it for at least a year. And then maybe it'll be gone. Don't try to till it out. You're gonna make it worse. But comfrey, good biomass for compost. Do not take it internally. In permaculture circles in the garden, it's used as a chop and drop mulch and fertilizer. So what they'll do is they'll just cut the leaves off. So if you have a bigger plant, imagine just cutting the leaves off like this and spreading them out in a thin layer on top of the soil surface. And then comfrey breaks down very fast. So this will break down in less than 2 weeks and it'll add to the soil. So if you've got plants growing, you don't want to be like adding stuff into the soil and mixing it in. You just want to set it on top. So if you're using something like comfrey or any other dead plants in a chop and drop method, you just want to cut them and lay them down, and then they'll break down and they'll build up the soil as they're breaking down. Sprouts more heads. Yes, it does. Like, yes, it's everywhere. So comfrey I have found is hard to find, partially because I think of the FDA ban, but a lot of gardeners just have it. So if they've got, like anyone who's growing comfrey, this is a sterile kind. So when mine sets flowers, it doesn't have seeds. So I have to split it by root propagation, which is what we're going to do today. But I always have some. So if anyone is nearby and they want some comfrey, send me a message because I can always break you off a piece. It only takes a little piece, and then you'll grow a plant. And then when you let the plant grow, the root mass will grow, and then you'll have more to propagate. It works just like that. That's how I started with mine. And after we get out and clear the side of the house, we will plant some more, so I can have it as a fertilizer for my compost bin. Okay, so where was I? Checking my notes? Okay, so it's used as a chop and drop plant for mulch to build up the soil. It's also used to put into people's compost bins. It can be fermented into a fertilizer. So what people will do, they'll take a bunch of plants, they'll cut them down, they'll chop up the leaves, and they'll put them in a bucket of water and submerge all the leaves and let it ferment outside. And after a couple weeks, it becomes like a fertilizer, like compost tea. But when you do that, it stinks. So I don't do that. It's more work than I want to put up with, and it smells, and I live in a townhouse, so my neighbors would definitely complain about that. So I just put mine in my compost bin. It can also be used if you want to get the NPK benefits fast. You can chop it up in a blender with some water and just like pour that little smoothie mixture on your plants. That's also a lot more effort than I want to put into my garden. But it's also used as a barrier. So what some people will do in the permaculture circles is they'll plant comfrey along their fence line so that grass cannot encroach into their garden. So when you plant comfrey, the roots spread out, the plants spread out, and it becomes like this nice little barrier. It's also good to feed to your livestock and your chickens and your ducks, your poultry animals. So if you're raising animals in your farm or garden, you can feed comfrey to them. They love it. And what I have here is Russian comfrey. So I found that out when it's at flowers, and then inside the flowers there were no seeds. So Russian comfrey is what you want if you have a small area. If you have a big area that you can just let it go crazy, then go ahead and plant the regular kind of comfrey. When it sets its flowers, the flowers can be like purple, blue, or white. And mine are a light purple color, but it's going to depend. There's lots of varieties of comfrey, but if you're looking for the kind that does not spread, ask for Russian comfrey or Bocking 14. If someone knows what that means, they'll tell you that's what I have, or they'll tell you that's not what I have. If you've got a small area, do not plant regular comfrey in the ground. It will take over. So what I'm going to do is just pull this out of this pot. It's pretty root bound in here, but it's about to get a new home. So I'm going to use my handy dandy hori with the serrated side, and I'm going to cut into this so I can get to the root ball. This right here, this is some of the large root from the comfrey. This piece over here, also large root from the comfrey. Okay, so what I have right here these two pieces, these are both enough to plant a whole new plant. Just these two pieces. So I'm putting them in my container. And I'm still pulling away as much soil as possible from this root mass so I can make sure that I'm getting viable pieces, because I'm going to break them up and plant them in these 4 Dollar Tree buckets that I made. I might have to get something to fix it. This does not want to be apart. Okay, so even more. Oh, here we go. This is a good one. This is a good bit of root. This has a little bit of root on it and a little sprout. This one's a little iffy, but I will try to plant all of these to grow more comfrey. If you guys have any questions about comfrey as you're watching me struggle with this, feel free to put them in the comment section and I'll answer your questions. Yeah, we're gonna have to cut this. So here's what's left, minus the large roots that I've already broken off. So it's got like a little, it's got the roots and a little crown, almost like a strawberry. But I'm gonna break this into several pieces and plant them. Can you reuse the soil that's webbed in with the small roots? I can, but normally I take soil like that and I put it in my compost. So the roots can break down in the compost and the soil will get recharged in my compost. So if I didn't have my own compost bin going, I would just pull out some of the roots and like thread it out and raisin. And I would make sure that they were in a really large container so the roots wouldn't inhibit the growth of a smaller plant in a smaller container. But since now I have my own large compost pile going, then I will put that soil in the compost bin and let it recharge and let the roots break down, because separating the soil out is kind of a pain. And oh, there's another big piece in here. Oh no, that's just a twig. So it can be reused in your garden if you don't have a better option, but I will put it into my big compost bin since I have a big compost bin now. And then with these, this I'm going to set aside for a little bit. And I'm going to take some of these roots. What do I have in here now? Oh, that's a lot. I will probably also be tucking some roots into other places in the garden just to see if some of these are actually viable. Some of them look a little iffy. But basically, to plant these, I'm just going to make a hole in my soil. I'm going to drop these root fragments in and then cover them up. So I'm going to do 3 in each of these buckets. I made 4 buckets. I made 1 in the class, and then I made the other 3 the next morning. So I'm just putting these in a triangular pattern so they'll have as much space as possible in this container. And then when they grow up, then I will, hopefully by then, I will have the side of my house clear. So I got an awesome new hoe online and had it shipped to my house so I could clear the ground. And that's basically it. This has been planted with Comfrey. I will top this off with some more dirt because I compacted it. But it's as simple as that. And then I've got my other 3 baskets. And that's all for tonight. Have a good night. Bye.